Thanks, guys, for that first carrier update of the day. We'll have another one coming up in just a little bit. But for now, we've got our editorial writer, Grace Sharkey, on with us this morning once again. Grace, welcome to FreightWaves Now on this morning. I've got to ask, how quickly can I get a pizza from Austin, Texas to Chattanooga, Tennessee?
Well, by drone, maybe hopefully very soon you could get it very quickly. So hopefully you can keep me updated on that on your podcast.
Hey, I'm working on it.
I do think, Grace, tell us a little bit about this story in Texas. I love that the name is a little bit forward. I think it was like Flying Pizza of Austin. I think that is very fitting for a company that's testing out drone delivery or not drone delivery rather, but autonomous vehicle delivery for pizzas.
Right? Hey, for a state that's known for their barbecue, there's sure a lot of robotics that are delivering pizzas in Texas today. So that's really fun to see. Yeah. So I've actually reported on Refraction AI in the past. They are up here and have been up here in Michigan, over in Ann Arbor, which as a state grad, I could prefer a better city. But the best thing about this robot and this technology is that Refraction AI wanted to create a autonomous delivery robot for last mile that could be deployed quickly. I think a lot of times when people see robotics, especially I would even say with neuro, is that they're very high in investment. They are extremely expensive. I want to say that a neuro is a couple $100,000. So they're not as easily deployable for smaller businesses and smaller mom and pop shops who are looking for a different type of option to deliver their foods. Or in Ann Arbor, they're actually delivering groceries as well. So there's a number of businesses that can use these robotics. And the cool thing about Refraction is not only have they built their robot to be easy to invest in and easy to deploy within cities, the technology within them is very useful within like harsh conditions. So just like a few other robots in our space, they don't rely on what we call LiDAR technology. They use a more 3D sensor system in order to really feel out a normal neighborhood with normal weather conditions, right? To create a robot that can't maneuver within snow, you're eliminating a large portion of just the United States, let alone the world. So it's really great to see that there's a company that's saying, okay, let's be a little bit more realistic about creating a autonomous mobile robot that can be used within a normal American neighborhood, right? So that's what's really great to see. And Austin is definitely completely different than Ann Arbor, especially between, I'd say, like November and March. What's really great is that the Rev 1 can actually maneuver completely within bicycle lanes. So it's nice that they've chosen Austin because there's going to be a lot more of these like suburban neighborhoods that have these lanes that they can just full on attack through and not have to wait in traffic or use the sidewalks and be in people's way. So that was one big thing why they chose Ann Arbor as the first city, because Ann Arbor does have a large amount of bike lanes. It's a little bit more of a, I'd say, like liberal engineered town in terms of making sure there's other ways that people can maneuver around the city that's not just by car.
And so Southside Flying Pizza has 3 different locations in Austin, one of them centered closer to the university. They're kind of around that, like scattered around that downtown area. And you mentioned the biggest difference between Ann Arbor and Austin is not only just the difference in snow, but the difference in the heat. It gets really, really hot in those Austin, Texas summers. So talk to me a little bit about the advantages of using this robot maybe down and how it's kind of not only built for making it through that snow, but also dealing with those heat conditions too. It's both sides of the spectrum, right?
Yes, yep. So it clearly, just like you've seen on the Neuro, it's in a lockbox that is temperature controlled so that you can deliver goods from groceries, right, ice cream, things of that nature, to pizzas. And like you said, yeah, definitely different climates that each of these that goods have to go through. So what's really nice is now they get to test out a different market, get to see how to deploy it in a different space. And I think the kicker is with Refraction in particular is they're not they're not about perfecting the robot. They do, of course, want a deployable robot, but they're more about perfecting the business model of robotics. Really, the robotics is a service type of method, right? So once we have the ability to have a robot maneuver safely in any type of environment, okay, well, how are we going to create like a system that can integrate into point of sales for these different companies? How are we going to teach these smaller organizations how to choose what is better in a delivery situation? Maybe in certain neighborhoods it is better for a human driver to go there. Maybe in certain situations, depending on speed or how quickly those goods need to get to the person, it's better to use the robot. That's what they're trying to perfect, is the actual operations behind a fleet of robots. So what's really great is that when people go and order these pizzas, right, they get to choose the robot as an option as well. Like they can say, hey, okay, I don't want this like robot to deliver my food. Maybe I want to see a smiling face today. Bring me a human. There's this type of option that is now available to these businesses and to their end consumers that wasn't there before. And that is what this company is really focused on and going after, not just perfecting the IP and the patent technology behind the actual robot. I will say, I think that both are impressive. And I think that Matt and the team up here at the University of Michigan who have made the robot have really great ideas of how to perfect the space. But they really want to figure out, okay, how do we deploy and manage a fleet within a city? And how do we continue to scale that across the United States?
Hey, Grace, you mentioned that this system is a little bit more accessible than Neuro's, that I don't think you're having to put up as much upfront cost. Is this a subscription service? Is that the model they're trying to build here?
Yeah, so really right now they have, I believe now they have 2 or 3 different customers. It's not just the pizza company. There's a few more this week that they're adding. And so they all share this fleet. So it's not just one company. It's not FedEx that's investing in these Neuros. It's a group of robots available to all local restaurants. So that's what's really neat, is it's figuring out a way to really, just like a trucking company, right? Figure out what customers need the robots today, how many each individual restaurant or grocery store is going to have access to them. It's literally figuring out like the logistics of any trucking company and splitting the time between the customers that they have available within a specific community. So it's not one company full on investing, kind of like, remember like DHL, which I saw that you just spoke to, Kaylee. It's the same. It's not the same as that, where DHL has taken all these robots. It's as if DHL was sharing it with all of the warehouses within a 10-mile radius.
Hey, Grace, we only have a minute here, but you got my wheels turning when you were talking about these robots running in bike lanes. Do you think that down the road, this actually makes bike lanes more important, and we could actually see some investment from cities in bike lanes if these can be used on the bike lanes?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because that's exactly every time I talk to them, that's my number one thought, is infrastructure, right? Is getting more of these bike lanes and getting these. I mean, it almost makes me wonder if at some point we'll have their own lane, this own robotics delivery lane, right? Like, wouldn't that just shock a lot of our parents? But I think that's what's really interesting, is now, okay, where's the infrastructure? Because people want this. People really do like this option. And it's so much quicker that they get to kind of honestly pass all of us in cars in that bike lane, and it's safer. So let's focus on that infrastructure and getting those out more into neighborhoods. And I think Michigan has been really good at that. And so I really believe that's why they started in Ann Arbor, because they have a ton of that type of infrastructure already built.
100%. Grace, you mentioned my At Your Doorstep podcast. It's actually one of the first guests I had on talking about building out these cities around this technology. Grace, thank you so much for joining us on our first hour. We'll have you back again coming up in just a little bit as well to talk a little bit different about her podcast, Transmission.